row over lockdown parties has now reached the doorstep of another former resident of number 10 Downing Street. Theresa May is under heavy Tory pressure to explain her alleged involvement in a socially distanced party. The former UK Prime Minister was photographed at an event that was held on November 24th, 2020. The event was organised to celebrate the 15th anniversary of a Tory pressure group known as Women to Win. According to a report by Guido Fawkes, May participated in the discussion in person at the headquarters of the think tank. The report also stated the panel discussion was followed by celebratory drinks. Reports suggest that May left the event before there were any drinks. Though nowhere in the original article is there a mention that Theresa May broke any rules. But the Labour Party and some Tory backbenchers are now demanding an official explanation from the former PM, as during that time most of Britain was under COVID lockdown and there were a number of limited exemptions relating to work. This comes after a Parliament Privileges Committee accused the former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson of deliberately misleading Parliament. The committee concluded that Johnson acted despite prior knowledge of COVID rules. He was aware that the parties were a breach of the rules. Theresa May herself acknowledged the report. She said every lawmaker is responsible for their own actions. Well, for more on this, our correspondent Alex Isaac joins us live from London. Alex, we've seen Partygate take down one former British Prime Minister and now another one's in the headlines. Just how damaging is this potentially for Theresa May?
Well, a lot of people have come out backing Theresa May already, I have to say. They are saying that she is a very stringent character, and actually those photos that have been going around on Guido Fawkes that you mentioned don't actually show her under 2 metres. The difference here is whether it was a drinks party or a work event, because when those pictures were taken, there was no ability to have that social distancing parties or drinks that we then ended up having here in the UK. At that time, she was saying it was a work event. There was pictures all over social media. There was actually a press photographer that sent out a lot of those pictures. So it could well be a lot of puff without any heat. But of course, the opposition party are going to run with it, especially because of the situation with Boris Johnson and the fact that Partygate and the inquiry has just concluded. Now, what we are going to be seeing, though, is what I'm hearing is that there are a lot more of these types of events to be coming out, whether it's via the Conservatives or Labour or any others of those that are in the House of Commons. There does feel that there is a lot of those that had broken the rules at the time when they were the ones implementing the rules. But generally, the UK public is having a bit of fatigue about all of these COVID party lockdowns. When we were speaking about Boris Johnson and the inquiry that came out, a lot of people were suggesting, it's time to get over this and move forward. We have a lot more problems within the UK rather than looking back and seeing what occurred during Partygate and all that time surrounding it. A lot of people want to be able to fix the problems and concerns that we have right now, which is the cost of living crisis, which is still rumbling on, and everything is continuing to rise in costs. Those 5 priorities you mentioned in your first story there that Rishi Sunak had promised with the immigration, with the NHS, those are the things that the UK public want to be hearing about, want to see moving forward, not just going back and picking on other MPs and former prime ministers about whether or not they had socially distancing parties. I think there is this general consensus against the UK public that it's expected, sadly, from our government that they aren't going to follow the rules that they enforce on everybody else.
And Alex, you mentioned the fatigue there, but of course we have a general election looming in the background now, likely to be taking place next year. The polls have Labour leading the Tories by quite a significant margin. Do you think that these continuingly damaging allegations of parties are contributing to those negative poll numbers for the Tories?
Oh, absolutely. I think, though, you have to remember that the Conservative Party has been in power for over a decade now, and there is a lot of problems that have come through for the last couple of years, not just the fact that we had the mini budget from Liz Truss, which technically did a real damage to our market. And of course, then we had Boris Johnson, Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak all in one time. So the Labour Party doesn't really need to be pushing this alternative. I think that many people were already looking to see what the Conservatives have been doing over the past years and not necessarily liking what they're seeing. And that's why the polls are showing that there is an increase for other parties. But it's not just the opposition Labour which is getting the increase in polls. Lib Dems and the Greens Party as well, they are actually getting a boost. So it looks like people aren't just wanting the two-horse race that we've been seeing for many a year. They're actually looking to see how can others help them. And maybe it isn't just about the Conservatives versus Labour, but we are going to be seeing a lot more tit for tat as we are going through until that election next year, because it does feel right now that there are a lot of problems Rishi Sunak had to face, especially he hasn't been in power that long, but also, there's been the COVID, there's been Brexit that's still rumbling on, there is trade deals that he has to deal with, plus those 5 priorities that I said. All of those things are weighing heavily on him, and there doesn't seem to be a fixable solution for any of them, especially that he said that he was going to do a lot of these changes before December, and we're not seeing any movement now, and we're nearly 6 months into the year. So you can see just from that why Conservatives themselves, the polls are going down, and the party does need to come and stick together. We're also seeing that the party itself seems to be falling apart. They're always out for backstabbing and putting things forward. So it does seem like they aren't really strong enough themselves to even ride this wave.
Alex Isaac, our correspondent in London there, many thanks.